This is my tried and true method of re-rigging things to work with strange skeletons. So you gave me these two things. RG trial was the horribly messed up one with the little hand and all other kinds of deformities. I was trying to figure out if you had the original undeformed mesh in here, but it didn't seem like it was there anywhere. So in rig 2 you do happen to have the original undeformed mesh. So I'm not sure how you did this, but we're not going to use this guy here because it's horribly deformed. I'm going to make a new blend file. Let me just open up another blend file. See Blender. Open on the wrong screen. Alright, so here's going to be a new file. I'm going to paste this. Yeah, this. So, this mesh follows. Well, the rig follows these vertex positions, which is a really annoying way of doing animation, but that's how they did it, so we have to use it. The guy is horribly deformed. We're going to re-rig him, so I'll just delete this. The animation is still working. We only care about rest pose because that's the only pose that you can rig things in. So what we want to do is move the guy's mesh such that it lines up with this. You could do it with this because you've already kind of put this in the right place. And that might work. It's a little bit weird. I'll test this quickly. But this skeleton that you're using is a little bit odd because it doesn't let me paste things correctly. I'm going to clear the guy's parents. I'm not exactly sure how you did this the first time, but I'm going to clear the parents and keep transform, which is a way of basically resetting a mesh's stuff. It resets the parameters and things like that without deforming him. So let's see. He's rotated a little bit. I'm looking at these feet bones as a reference. One of the feet is smaller for some reason. This is the weirdest rig. Alright, so he was rotated a little bit. He looks okay now. I think he has to be a lot smaller. Yeah, that looks fine. If this doesn't work, then I'll use my own method of using a generic rig. I just wanted to test this quickly. So, can I show? How do you show keys in Blender? Blender show key press. Download the script. I'll just copy it. I just want to show you what I'm working on, or what I'm doing at any given point. Huh. No, wait. I don't know what this is. Just some weird script that showed up. Right, I'm gonna run this. Got this now. Alright, cool, that's what I wanted. Alright, anyway, I'm gonna try to position this guy to be in the right place. Oh boy. He's rotated more than I thought. He seems to also be rotated along this axis. It's okay, I guess. If this doesn't work out, then I will use a generic rig. Anyway, before you rig anything, you want to make sure all of the mesh parameters are applied. And I'm going to try to rig him to this thing. But if it doesn't work, I'll use the generic one. I think the generic one's better anyway. for this task because the bones are not in arbitrary rotations like this one is. I can hear the computer fan spinning. I guess 200,000 triangles is a lot of rigging to do. Oh. I don't know why it moved like that. You can tell if the rig is good or not by trying to move the hands and arms, though. R, Y. No, see. This is what was weird about the rig. Well, this is a rig too. Is this rotatable? Yeah, see, it's not rotating along the right axis. I'm trying to rotate along Y, and it's doing that. So, I'll go back to before it was rigged. Your parents. Anyway, I'm gonna copy this guy into the new scene. Or let me actually copy him. Well, clear parent is not the only thing that you use to get rid of a rig. It's a step that you need to do, but you also need to apply the mesh modifier, or the armature modifier, so that when you copy it to a different file, it doesn't show up. I'm going to do this on a different layer. So now that I applied that armature modifier, he's not attached to that rig anymore, and it doesn't copy with him. I don't know what this stray vertex is. It seems like a piece of noise or something. I'm just going to delete it. So anyway, here he is. And now I'm going to do my thing. I'm also going to recenter him. Let me open the script again. Alright. So, I'm going to do this. This is a long shortcut, Control-Alt-Shift-C. But you can do geometry to, or origin to geometry, and it just makes it so that when you're trying to move the guy around, it's in the center as opposed to some random position. Anyway, I'm going to rig him to the generic human skeleton of Blenders. So add human armature, and I'm going to place him so that he's standing on the floor. If you want to help with this process, you can just put a plane here and see when his feet intersect. So I want him to be centered like this. Rotate a little like this. Rotate up like this. Or I mean move up like that. And you can shrink him or increase the size of the armature. I'm gonna increase the armature size because his size is closer to the size of the actual animation rig. So I'm gonna increase this thing's size. You can turn on X-ray to make this easier as well. Do that. Also, make sure that this guy's stuff is all applied. Location, rotation, scale. The armature, I guess, is pretty much at the right place. Move him a little bit. I guess that's good enough for now. Maybe I might want to rotate him a little bit this way. Yeah, that looks fine. I'm just making sure that this head bone is in the right place. Something you can do if you want is change the representation of this, like B bone and stuff like that. I think that octahedral is the easiest to use for rigging because you can see what direction points are pointing. Alright, that seems okay. Apply his rotation. And now I'm going to do the rigging. I'm going to make, since his fingers are not separated, so there can't possibly be a hand animation. You can probably just delete the hands here, and it won't really make a difference. Otherwise, what you can do is turn them into a tiny bone like this. Like that, and just kind of throw them into the space. Deleting it is easier, so I'm just going to do that. You can have stick hands, it's fine. Delete all of these as well, because the toes don't matter. Toes I'll leave, actually. I guess you don't need the front toe part. That's fine. I'll show you the trick that I use for the feet to try to make it easier on myself. Anyway, the shoulders, they're kind of in the right position. They can use a little bit of movement. You want to be in edit mode, by the way, not pose mode when you're doing this rigging. So that looks like a decent place to put this. Numpad period's a great shortcut, by the way. It zooms in on the part that you're selected. That you have selected, I mean. So this part is supposed to go in his elbow, which is like around here. This part can go anywhere near his wrist, as long as it's inside of the mesh, which is the important part. But usually when the armature process fails, or when the rigging process fails, it's because the bone is not inside the mesh, or it's way too close to the skin. Alright, so that looks okay to me. This one is slightly too high. This one should go down and up like this. What I do to try to make this process easier is just look at it from different axes and kind of improve it there. If you look at it from the side, it's annoying to position. Like, you start from one axis, make sure it looks right from this side, and then go to the next side and keep doing that. I find that that's the easiest way to do this, but I guess other people have different recommendations. This looks good enough, I guess. You could always do something better later. Alright, that looks fine to me. For the arms, the tailbone's already in a good enough place. Now we gotta focus on the legs. So, as for the legs, we need to rotate them. If you want to, you can enable symmetry, like x-axis mirror. But the reconstructed mesh is not usually symmetric, so the trick doesn't always work. But these two legs are close enough to symmetric for now, at least to get an initial positioning. That's okay. At least the leg that I'm working on is okay. I'll disable this and then improve them. The knee is already basically in the right place. The feet. So, feet are kind of annoying. If you want to, you can take advantage of this thing being at the heel bone. I personally don't, because feet can easily cause the rigging process to just fail. It's kind of annoying. So what I'm going to do is first of all rotate it so it's facing the right way. And then my trick for this is to just scale it down like that. To just kind of flatten them so they fit in the feet. Especially in this case where he has frog feet for some reason. It just makes the process easier. And since you're not moving toe bones, it doesn't matter. This is not in the right place. Rotate it like that. Scale down. Should probably rotate it slightly on this axis. That seems okay to me. Let's try to move this down a little bit. Alright, I think that should work. So now we can try the rigging. Make sure that the guy is applied, so all these are applied. If you want to, you can apply the skeleton's scale as well. Like this. And I don't remember if you need to do this or not. I do it as a force of habit because it can cause weird problems if you don't otherwise. But this pose, you pose this yourself, so it only applies to pose position. If you go back into rest position, it won't be, or it doesn't have any animation, so I guess pose and rest position are the same. But in the case where it's not, there's commands for apply pose as rest pose. In this case, the rest pose was the same because there was no animation, so it doesn't matter. Alright, so I'll rig this. I'll rig him to this auxiliary mesh that I'll use to align him to the kinect mesh, or the kinect skeleton. This didn't take that long last time. For whatever reason, it didn't take as long as this one, this weird mesh. Whatever they called it, the capture mesh or something. I'm gonna have him dance for us as we wait. He's doing the special handshake. I don't know what's up with the kinect sequence. It looks like it's almost two sequences merged into one. That it caused, like, it goes down like that. Also, I don't know what's up with these stray vertices. Maybe that's just caused by whatever rigging you did. Alright, it's done. I know, because the fans on my computer stopped working. Let's do our good old test of trying to move the arm. If it didn't rig correctly, then this arm wouldn't move. When I move the bone, he would just be the same. So, it works well enough. The shoulder position, as you can see, is not exactly the best. It should be probably a little bit lower to try to avoid that deformity that you see. Because you want the pivot to be like where your actual bone pivot would be on your real skeleton. And this is a little higher than that, so it can cause weird deformations. But anyway, you can see it works. His legs work. Have him play some soccer here. And you can see that flattening the feet like this didn't really cause any problems. If you wanted to, well, this will be the bone that we actually, well, maybe it would have been beneficial to delete this bone in the back, but it won't really affect us for now. But you can delete it if you want. So I'm moving back to layer 1. Oh, whoops. Move into layer 1 so that we can do this. Alright, so what I want to do now is position him so that he aligns with the rest pose of the skeleton, so that afterwards we can rig him to the new skeleton and then he'll follow the animation correctly. So I want to move him to be over here. If these two skeletons were the same, as in they had the same naming conventions and the structure was the same, then you will be able to copy the pose of this one and put it onto the other. Although this kinect skeleton is weird, so I don't know if that's the case, but normally you can copy poses between skeletons if their bones are named the same, but these are not. And yeah, this kinect skeleton is very strange. Well, now I'm in rest pose, but for some reason this plugin that you were using, if that is what's happening, it just doesn't like when you copy and paste things. It doesn't like when you move things. Like now I can't even rotate this. I guess it's because of, I guess it's completely controlled by these vertices. which is a pain, but thankfully this will work in Unity afterwards. Anyway, moving on to the actual task. I find it easiest because his pivot point is over here between his feet. I'm gonna try to make that between these feet here. And he needs to be scaled up, rotated like that, rotated forward maybe. Nah, we'll just move the bones to be in that position. Rotated on this axis. Trying to align his leg bones, kind of. But it won't, I mean, it's not super important to get this part right, because you can always just move the bones themselves. This is just to try to make your life easier, because if you do this part right, then you don't really need to worry about moving the head or the spine. So just trying to make sure that the head and spine part are inside of his mesh. So yeah, both of these are inside of him. Something you can do to try to make this less visually frustrating is you can change, now that you've already done this rigging, you can change this to look like a stick. See? And that makes the visual clutter a little bit more manageable. So now the skeleton is in the right place, at least, but now we need to get the pose to be right. I'm going to change this to object mode so that it doesn't keep doing that. So go into pose mode on the auxiliary mesh, and now we're going to try to get it to be in the right place. And it's kind of up to you how much effort you want to put into this. I'm not putting much because I'm not using it, but if you want this to have fewer visual distortions, you can put more effort into it and try to make it as well aligned as possible. I'm just trying to get both sets of bones to be inside of the mesh. I'm guessing that re-rigging it to the other mesh will cause some problems here because these vertices, or the mesh is so crunched, or it's so dense in this area. You want to try to avoid that if possible, because what can happen is that, I don't know, something like moving his arm could cause his shirt to move and things like that, because that's just how the rigging process worked. Although it looks like the original mesh, when it was kind of A-posed, already had some stuff there. I don't know if he was wearing a baggy shirt or the reconstruction just ended up being bad. Moving on. That looks reasonable. No, this has to come in. The pants are another example. So, I mean, typically the way that we would combat this is by making sure that the initial pose when you're doing the kinect capture is a T pose or an A pose. This bone I need to move forward, and hitting G is not letting me do that, whereas normally it would. So what I'm going to do is just the here. I don't know if this works. You generally don't want to translate bones like that, but you know, what works, works. looks terrible. Alright. RX, RY, like that. That's the legs seem okay. Let's do the feet. I mean, the feet already look bad in the reconstruction, so having it bad here isn't the end of the world. You can move multiple bones at a time like this to try to deal with the frog feet problem, or the fact that his feet are split into multiple bones like that. Looks okay. This foot here needs more work. I think that looks okay to me. Hopefully it doesn't crash. Alright, so now that that's done, we want to remove it from the stick bone, the auxiliary skeleton. Clear and keep transformation. Apply armature. Stick bones are no longer useful, so I'm going to move to a different layer. Make sure his location rotation scale is applied. And now we're going to try to rig him to this thing. Ooh, I don't have a virus, I promise. In a lot of cases, this method of using an auxiliary skeleton to move the mesh so that it fits a pre-animated skeleton is the only one that'll work, because you can't just modify the vertices of his mesh, so you really need a skeleton to get them in the right place. And you can't use the pre-animated skeleton because you can't change its rest pose to work with the mesh, otherwise it screws up the entire animation. So this auxiliary skeleton method is, in a lot of cases, it's the only one that I've found that works reliably. Some meshes don't rig well, like they'll throw errors when you try to rig them for no reason. This one didn't. Like if the rig failed, you would see a message up here, but it only shows up for a couple of seconds, so if you're not paying attention, you wouldn't have seen it. But do our good old-fashioned test. Try to move. He's in rest pose. Well, since it's in rest pose and the pose position is this, if he looks right in pose position, then that means that it's good. So yeah, it looks okay. And the animates. And in some cases it's odd, like in this case I didn't quite know which way the hand was supposed to be facing. Evidently it was supposed to be facing the other way. Or it seems like his palm should be outwards. I don't remember, I didn't see the animation sequence like the video, so I don't know, but animation's working. And it's not horribly deformed like it was before. So now you can save this somewhere. Like here I'll do kinect tutorial, because I already had some there. And now we'll just throw that into Unity as is. So here I have the Unity reconstruction of my house. Oh god, Unity is playing right now, so I hope that it doesn't just crash trying to do this. I'm using Unity 2019.3 right now, but I've done this with older versions of Unity and it still worked. So kinect tutorial is a new one. There it is. I found that 0.2 was a pretty good scale for these things. The reason that he shows up as completely shadowy is because the scene is unlit. So I have these two unlit materials, blue and red. I'm gonna make them green just to show you the comparison. In Unity, Unity being the great engine that it is, you can't copy and paste anything. So what you have to do instead is go into the assets. So here are the assets, and I'm just going to copy and paste blue because this is the only way to do it. I'll rename it to green. Is this playing right now? Oh god, it was. Doesn't matter. That just means I have to replace that thing. So this will be green. Like green looks really ugly. Alright, that looks better. And I throw this back in here. 0.2, 0.2, 0.2. Making green back there. And if you want to preview the animation, and you don't want to deal with the Unity's stupid animation controller system, what you can do is expand this imported mesh, and this is the default track, which is just the animation that was in Blender. In Blender, if you have multiple animation tracks, like in the node editor or dope sheet, if you have multiple tracks that have different names, then you can you'll see multiple there. But in any case, we only have this one, so what you can do is drag this onto him, and it will create the animator and stuff. And so when you play it now, you'll just see them dancing. The blue one I think was a little bit better because I put more effort into trying to re-rig it. But, well, the green one is a hunchback. They have this hunchback problem here. But the blue one has the problem that I mentioned before, where you could see the shirt pulling. So you want to try to keep the mesh separated if possible. See, some of it looks okay, but some of it looks really wrong. Like you can see that kind of like one angle. And the red one is the old one that did work. So yeah, that's my process. So try it out and see if that works. Good luck with that.